Be thou strong, therefore, and show thyself a man. And so one of the things you have to understand is that behaving yourself is consistent with maturity. Immature folk don't manage themselves well. I knew it was going to get quiet right then. Immature people do not manage themselves well. They go off, they fly off at the handle, they trip, they click over anything. That's a sign of immaturity. Children do that. You've seen children when they can't have their way. They take their toys and they will fling them clear across the room. They pound their fists, they stomp their feet, they open their mouths wide and holler and just upset the atmosphere. That's a mark of immaturity. But David is saying to Solomon, his son, he says, show thyself a man, or show yourself mature. And in verse number 3, which is where my point is, he said, and keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses. And here is the reason you need to do that, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest. Look at somebody near you, tell them, if you behave yourself, prosperity will come to you in all that you do. But you have to manage yourself. It's easy for us to want to manage everybody else. We want to tell everybody else what to do. We want to put everybody else in order, everybody else in check, everybody else in line. But what about managing yourself? What about conducting yourself in a manner that's proper? David said to Solomon, he said, if you manage yourself wisely, and if you conduct yourself wisely, he's basically saying you'll prosper, not just in some things, but in everything that you do. And wherever you turn, in essence, wherever you go, you'll prosper in everything that you do. Doesn't matter if you are in the kingdom or outside of the kingdom. He's basically telling Solomon, he said, look, anywhere in the land, you're going to prosper for as long as you're behaving yourself, for as long as you are conducting yourself wisely. And if I'm given that instruction, and I know that whether I'm in the house of God or on my job, if I know that whether I'm in my home, in my community, in a place of business, if I'm even in somebody else's house, when I have those instructions and that wisdom that basically says, behave yourself, manage your own actions and your own conduct in a way that God is pleased with, then the promise is prosperity comes to you in everything that you do. And so that means to me, everything I touch, I'm going to be a success at it. Every place I walk, I'm not only going to be good in where I walk, but I'm going to find favor in the places that I walk, simply because I learned to behave myself. And so when we were children growing up and we received those instructions, that wasn't just so that we could get a treat when we got back home. They were molding our character. They were basically saying, when you go away and you're not under the watchful eye of an authority, do what's right just because it's right. They were shaping character because they understood that character is basically doing what's right because it's right, even if nobody's watching. That's what it means to behave yourself. When nobody's paying attention, nobody's looking at you, nobody's going to give you a gift or take anything from you, as you know, if you behave yourself or not behave yourself. David is basically saying you got to behave yourself for the sake of yourself. He's saying you are the one who will prosper in everything that you do and in every place that you go, but you're going to have to line your behavior up with all that God has commanded. He said, keep the commandments of God, keep his statutes, walk according to the things that the Lord has spoken, even concerning the law of Moses, he's telling Solomon. And he's basically saying, if you just obey God, if you just do what God said, if you're consistent in his house and out of his house, if you make sure that that same meekness and gentleness that you smile and greet the next person in church, if you take that same meekness and gentleness to your house, there will be prosperity in your house. Too often we are good Christians at church and we are sorry Christians at the house. Your children can't even tell that you're a Christian at the house sometimes, and that's not good.